Welcome to the A Monday Moment with Dr. Mal podcast, where each week I, Dr. Mal, share life lessons and motivation to kickstart your Monday. Whether you're starting your day or winding down, join me or me and my future guest for a burst of positivity and a fresh perspective. Let's make Mondays meaningful together. Greetings and happy Monday, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Mallory D. McCoy, and welcome to this week's episode of A Monday Moment with Mal. As always, may this broadcast bring you what you need in the present moment. May my light exude positivity and kindness, and may my love be extended to all who could use a little extra. Ashe. Let's seize the moment. I just want to start by saying thank you for tuning in to my episode or the shorts about telepathy. It's nice to be able to get that out of my system. And after I recorded that episode, I had some very affirmative experiences with telepathy and my son specifically. And so I'm just grateful for the enlightenment, and I'm grateful for the spiritual path that I'm on, and I'm just grateful for the journey. I feel like this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm also grateful for life. I'm grateful for joy. I'm grateful for the affirmative experiences that I've been having as of late. Like, I, for a while, was experiencing life like, is it over yet? Because I'm done. And then I was enlightened to the fact that I don't have to suffer through my life. There's going to be things that happen, but I have the power to choose if I suffer through those things or not. Once I changed my mindset around that, everything's just been so joyful. I have been telling my close friends the everyday joy that I've been having, and I've been sharing that, but it's too much to put on a podcast. In fact, I could probably do like 3 podcasts about my joy. 3 1-hour long podcasts about the joy that I've been experiencing. And so I'm just really grateful for this point in my life. I'm grateful for the people in my life. I'm grateful for the lessons that I'm learning through people and situations in my life. And I'm just thankful for the love of me. I've been showering myself with love. I've been dating myself, and that's certainly been fun. I've been having so much fun, and I've also been having so much fun being creative. So I'm grateful for the space to create. And lastly, I can say my choir performed at a fundraiser this past week, and they killed it. And it was actually a song that they chose to sing because I chose it for them, but they loved it so much that we've now performed it twice, and they're just performing at such a high level. And so I'm grateful for the experience of them and the joy that they bring me as we make music and translate music to the audience. Okay, so this is the second podcast of a series of podcasts that I'm doing for Autism Acceptance Month. And April is Autism Acceptance Month, but today's episode is deeply personal. It's not just another podcast, it's another peek into my heart. So last week was a peek into my heart and my enlightenment with my son, and this is another peek into my heart. And in this episode, I'm telling you a story, or rather, the highlight reel of our ongoing journey. R equals me and my son. And I hope that this resonates with you, whether you're a parent, educator, or just someone trying to understand autism more deeply, and from the caregiver's point of view, and from someone who self-diagnosed myself as being neurospicy. So I'm certainly on the spectrum somewhere. And so, before I get into it, I love me a good definition, and I'm team hashtag facts over feelings. So let's start with some real talk and some real stats. According to the CDC, about 1 in 36 children in the United States have been identified with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. That number has increased over the years, not necessarily because more kids have autism, but because more people are recognizing it and more providers are trained to diagnose it. Autism has been around for a long time, and I have my I have my theories about that. So if you want to have a personal conversation with me, feel free to DM me. Boys are 4 times more likely to be diagnosed than girls, but y'all, Black children are often diagnosed later than white children. In some cases, Black and brown children are misdiagnosed with behavior disorders instead of being properly evaluated for autism. That delay in diagnosis, it delays access to services, therapies, and support that can make a huge difference early on. I'm a large advocate for early intervention because it certainly has been a blessing to myself and my son to have identified his autism early on. And get this, about 40% of children with autism are non speaking or minimally verbal. That doesn't mean they don't communicate, as I talked about in my last episode. It just means they may do so in ways the world isn't always ready or willing to understand. Early intervention, starting before the age of 3, can significantly improve a child's development, communication, and overall quality of life. And this is for all children. This is not just for children that are neurodivergent, but all children learn, humans learn everything they're going to know between the ages of 0 and 6. And that's a developmental fact. And so children who are neurodivergent, if the earlier that you can get interventions for them, the better. There is no one size fits all treatment or approach to autism because there's no one size fits all child in any sense of any of the words. That's what makes navigating autism so tricky because there is not this, okay, they have autism, let's treat it like this. No. And lastly, let's talk about it. On that note, autism is not a disease to cure. It's a neurodevelopmental difference, a way of processing the world that deserves understanding and respect. Of course, there are supplements to help anyone improve anything in their mind and body, but I struggle so hard with people proclaiming there's a cure because what does a cure look like? If it's not a one size fits all approach, does it make the child have neurotypical behaviors? Is that the cure we're talking about? Behaving to societal standards is hardly a cure. And yes, I said what I said. Yeah, I can't tell my whole story in one episode, but I'll try to walk you through the highlights of my journey with my son. And also, I need to let you know that it is from my point of view. When my son is old enough to tell us his point of view, I know that he will. But it is not fair for me to try to tell his part of the story. So I can only tell you my part of the story from my vantage point. So I can't wait till the day he's able to communicate his story to the world. So my beautiful son, he was born December 2016. And that first year, let me tell you, it was the hardest year of my life. I was full-time teaching, full-time breastfeeding, full-time mothering. I was leaning on Google to be my doula and my midwife, my therapist, and sometimes my pediatrician because I really felt like my son was uniquely him from the beginning. But also, I was a first time mom. And so sometimes the pediatrician wasn't able to answer. Sometimes the therapist, my therapist, wasn't able to answer. And so I had to rely on Google. And literally, I was just trying to keep my head above water because I felt like I was up for a year and a half, 24 hours a day, barely getting any sleep. And it was also because my son didn't sleep through the night his whole entire first year and beyond that. I think I would say a year and a half, he never slept through the night. He had sensory issues too, and he needed to be right next to me. And so I actually slept with him on my chest or I would lay him in the bed so that he could dream feed, or what they call dream feed. He'd wake up in the middle of the night and want a drink. So because I was terrified of rolling over on him, and all of the literature and parents are like, don't sleep with your child, I literally did not get a full night's sleep until he was about 2. I'm pretty sure. And then with breastfeeding, he had trouble latching at first. And they thought that it was tongue ties and lip ties, but he didn't have either one of those. And so I did go to a lactation consultant, and she was able to help us move through breastfeeding. But then, like at month 7, came the ear infections, and he kept having back-to-back ear infections. And at the direction of the doctors, because he was also having fevers with these ear infections, I was rotating Tylenol and Motrin like clockwork. And if I'm looking back, I wish I would have done things different or had the knowledge to do things differently. But at the time, I did the best I could with the information that I had. And since that time, he's actually had 2 sets of ear tubes. So we ended up having to get him ear tubes so that his ears could properly drain. He was hitting milestones all the way up until he was year 1, and then he wasn't. I'd say as soon as he turned 13 months, he started regressing. He was my only baby, and so I didn't have anything to compare his behavior to. And to be honest, I was a new mom, but I was also full-time teaching. And so oftentimes I was grabbing him from the daycare, coming home, doing what I do with him a little bit, go to sleep, and then put that on repeat. So I didn't really notice any of those behaviors. However, his teachers noticed that he was zoning out, going quiet, and not babbling like before, and not giving eye contact. It was literally like he was in a fog. And like I said, I was just too busy, so I didn't notice that about him. So his daycare director brought me in one day, and she introduced me to the MChatR, which is a free autism screening tool that is just found online. You can just Google MChatR and it'll come up. And so we sat together in her office and we both filled it out. And because we had similar results, it encouraged me to seek help for him. So I got him into Missouri's First Steps program. I'm in Missouri, so they have a program called First Steps, which that was a blessing. They work with children that have developmental disabilities from age birth through 3 years old. And so through that program, I was able to get him speech and occupational therapy. And those therapists became new family members because as soon as the program started, they were both in my home and they were my eyes and ears at daycare because sometimes they would go service him at daycare. And then I'm glad they were at daycare because when he transferred to the 2-year-old room, his newest daycare teacher was not treating him right. She was just leaving him in the corner all day. And so his OT reported to me like, hey, you need to go up to that school and check it out. And so I rolled on up there and real quickly advocated for my baby. And so I'm thankful for not only the First Steps program, but I'm also thankful for that occupational therapist who was like, hey, this doesn't look good. And he's not being treated in the way that he needs to be treated. But to that point, she also encouraged me to get an autism diagnosis. And before I had my son, you need to know, if you don't know anything about me, I've taught in the school system for years, and I've taught students with autism. Even though I had that experience, I still wasn't prepared to hear that word applied to my child. But still, I said, whatever I need to do for my baby, I will do it because that's my baby. And so I called around, got on the phone, tried to figure out where I could get his diagnosis here in Kansas City. The medical system is slow. When I called around locally, the soonest I could get him in was like 9 months. And I was like, I'm not prepared to do that. So then, in discussing that with his OT, she was like, hey, have you heard of the Thompson Center for Autism and Neurodevelopment Disorders in Columbia, Missouri? And I hadn't. And so I reached out to them, and there was only a 2-week wait. So I was able to make an appointment 2 weeks after I called them. So for his appointment day, we took an overnight trip because the appointment was really early in the morning. My mother-in-law went with me, and my own mom met us in Colombia for his assessments. And the assessments, okay, mind you, my son was 2.5 years old at the time. And the assessments were 3 hours long. It was the longest 3 hours because, I'm trying to keep his attention and trying to help the people who are assessing him to keep his attention. But, we had to take breaks and stuff like that. But we got through it. And by the time it was over, we were both done. I was spent. I was ready to go. But I did, in fact, leave with paperwork that day confirming that he was autistic. And so on that same day, I remember almost immediately, I became an autism advocate even before I fully understood what that meant, and even before I fully understood what he needed. And so when I got the official diagnosis, I felt two things at once: relief and grief. I had relief because now I could name it, address it, and support whatever he needed. But I also had grief because I know that, and still know that, society was not built and is not built for my baby and people like him. And that hurt. But I could not stay in that grief because it's me. I'm his voice box. And so I had to shift, and I had to shift quickly. So from there, it was ABA therapy. Parents as teachers was also at my house, and a whole lot of trial, errors, tears, laughing and learning and joy. Now, mind you, also to give you a frame of time, it was July 2019 when I got his diagnosis. And so I started building out his treatment plan in accordance with insurance and putting everything in place. But when the pandemic hit, March 2020, and the world shut down, we literally lost everything that I had built for him overnight. No therapy, no routine, just me, my autistic 3-year-old, 600 music students online that I was teaching, my doctoral program. Okay, mind you, I also started a doctoral program August 2019, which is irrelevant, but that was also on top of that. Uh, a tense household because things weren't good between his father and myself, and a global pandemic when we were stuck to the house. And so I just think about that time, and I think about, oh my gosh, all of that. And I got through it. It was so wild. But like I said, we made it through somehow. I should say in May 2020, he returned to in-person therapy and stayed in ABA until January 2023. It was at this time we transitioned to in-home part-time support in the winter and summer before kindergarten. And I had quit my teaching job. And so it was really just a beautiful alignment, because if I had not quit my teaching job, I wouldn't be able to be there to support him in the home while we did part-time ABA therapy. And I had somebody in my house 3 days a week for half a day. And so now he's in first grade. We're here. And he actually is supported in an autism classroom. There's 8 students in the class, and there's 4 adults, the teacher and 3 paras. And he loves his teacher, and he loves going to school most days. Well, it's not the going to school, it's the process of getting to school. Once he gets to school, he's fine. But he's not a morning person like myself. So I say all that to say, it has not been easy. Let me be real clear about that. For me, it's been the evaluations, it's the meetings, it's the acronyms, IEPs, SLP, ABA, PT, OT, PECs, and other acronyms that escape me because, oh my gosh, it's literally a whole new world. You have to learn a whole new vocabulary. And I'm a whole educator. I'm a doctor of educational administration. And so I find myself sometimes having to pause to say, like, now hold on, what what did you say? What does that mean? And so I can only imagine what it's like for a parent who's not a part of the educational system at all. And so that's why I always say, if you don't understand something, ask somebody. that has been through it, or just ask the people that are sitting there. Do not suffer in silence in this space. And pick me, because of my pride, I feel like I suffered more than I needed to, when all I needed to do was be intentional about building a community where I could ask questions and be vulnerable. So now I'm in a better space. But also, to that note, while building your community, you also have to be careful about the information shared in the community. For example, one of the things that is said to help minimize autism symptoms is feeding autistic people a gluten-free, casein-free, and soy-free diet. So, I mean, I'm plant-based, so casein-free is not a problem. Soy-free, my son's diet's not soy-free, but gluten-free, I mean, we could do that too. So I was doing that for the most part, but in 2020, I took my son to a functional medicine doctor and spent thousands of dollars on functional medicine tests, only to find out that he's highly sensitive to almonds. And after feeding him gluten-free foods full of almond flour, I learned that I was actually hurting him when I was trying to help him, and I didn't even know it. And furthermore, what I was told could be right for him was not right for him, affirming that to me, that if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And then there was the thousands of dollars spent on broken iPads because his communication app, his $300 communication app that insurance did not pay for, only works on the iPad or on the Apple interface. And the insurance battles that I had, because insurance doesn't pay for communication devices, it's not looked at as a disability. Well, the insurance that we had, which is a government insurance, and the insurance jargon that I had to learn alongside therapists so that insurance would pay for services. So you had to have the wording right, because if the wording was not correct in the paperwork that was being filled out in his services, then insurance wasn't paying for it. And so I had to learn the insurance language, and it was also like learning another language. So aside from the language I was learning with autism, and not to mention having to open your home up to a number of different people, and not only open up your home, but also open up your family business, because they're in your house. They're upstairs, they're downstairs, they're everywhere, wherever my son is. And so it was a lot to adjust to. And let's talk about him. The heart of him. Loud sounds, hard. He cannot tolerate loud sounds. People looking because he's loud socially. So while we're out, he's being loud. That's hard. Uh, Limited diet. So hard. I'll tell you, for a while there, he was only eating hip peas, barbecue puffs for lunch and dinner. Okay, $6 a bag, lunch and dinner. So when stores ran out, I found myself panicking. I had anxiety because I'm like, what's baby boy going to eat? And so I even drove once 30 minutes to another grocery store to get them, since they were out of stock at the grocery store that we normally go to. And now they've stopped making them. So luckily, they stopped making them at the same time he stopped eating them, because I'm like, okay, what else he's gonna eat? And then there's been times where he gets obsessed with one food, and then all of a sudden he decides to just stop eating it. And so that anxiety, that tightness, I can feel it in my body right now, because his diet's already limited. And I'm like, okay, well, what else are we gonna feed you? What else are you gonna eat? And then don't even talk about the manufacturers changing the packaging of the product that he liked. He won't eat it because he would not eat certain things if the package changed, because the package changed. And so that's stressful. In fact, let me go further. YouTube Kids, he loves YouTube Kids. YouTube Kids changed their app and how you access the videos. He wouldn't even use the iPad for like 2 weeks because he couldn't navigate the new interface. And so anyway, It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. I'm thankful for at least having plant-based options, but fruit is hard too because we're plant-based and fruit tastes different throughout the year. So, for example, his favorite fruit is blueberries. He will eat blueberries at this time of the year because blueberries are in season. But when blueberries get sour, then he doesn't eat them. And so it can drive you crazy just a little bit because you're like, oh no, my baby. Okay, so some more hard potty training. Oh, real hard. And it's still a thing in my household. Eloping, hard and sometimes heartbreaking. When I watching parents navigate their children eloping, I felt that. I felt that drop in my belly multiple times. Like you turn your head for 5 seconds and then pew, they're gone somewhere. You're like, okay, where is he? I just literally turn my head for a second or I look down for a second. At home, we have top locks, and that's came in clutch for real because we can lock them inside. Having haircuts, oh my gosh, it used to be hard, but now it's way better. His daddy cuts his hair, so I'm thankful for that. Learning his language, hard, but I had to learn about myself first. So there's the caveat to that. Teaching kids about my son is somewhat hard, but teaching kids about my son is easier than teaching adults about my son. Being around family members and them comparing him to other kids in the family or kids that they have, super hard. Being in social situations and he has to stem, hard at first, but right now I don't care. I'm at the point where I don't care because I had to think about, it's my feelings about him stemming about me or is it about him? Because he needs to stem. Dealing with the grief of the other parent while dealing with your own grief, super hard. 0 out of 10 don't recommend. But I mean, it happens. And if you're wondering what grief I'm talking about, there's a grief that happens when you are grieving because you don't have a neurotypical child, and the grief that you have is unpredictable. And if two people are grieving, the grief doesn't happen at the same time. So when you may be okay at some point, the other person is not. Or when you move beyond the grief into loving deeply and the other person doesn't move at all, they're still in grief, and that's very difficult. Also, dealing with the other parent who struggles with all the things that have to do with autism, that's hard. Dealing with the other parent that believes that autism can be healed, capital hard. Dealing with the other parent who has little experience with children and attaches any unfavorable behavior to autism instead of to just being a kid. That's probably the hardest of all. Yeah, then for me, listening to stories from people who say, "Oh, I have a friend that has a child with autism and they insert whatever they heard or experienced with that child," that's ridiculously hard because just because you have a secondary experience or even a primary experience with someone else's autistic child or family member doesn't mean that you're going to experience my son in the same way. Because, like I said, and like I'll continually say, if you met one child with autism, you've met one child with autism. This is not a one size fit all journey for any one of us. So why would it be for autistic people? I'll note here that I'm in some mom groups that are specifically for autism, and the self-harming and harming behaviors can become so bad that their babies are in and out of the hospital having to be restrained and put in psychiatric holds. The most heartbreaking stories that I've witnessed are ones where the mothers have had to make a choice to commit their babies. So, them having to live outside the home or and put them in group homes because they've become a danger to themselves or those around them. And even worse, the stories of autistic people that elope and live close to a body of water and then are found in that body of water are just heart-wrenching. You may not know, but drowning is the number one cause of death for autistic people because they are drawn to water. I know that to be true because I have my own water baby. This baby loves water. And so whenever we're around water, I am on high alert with him. And so I'm glad that he loves water because I love it too, but he doesn't quite understand that you can't breathe in the water. And if you can imagine, After saying all of that, this is the short list of all that we experience, but my son is just so beautiful. He is light, he is magic, he is exactly who the Most High intended him to be. And as discussed in my last episode, my son may be non-speaking, but baby, he has whole conversations through his body, through his eyes, through his energy, and through his face, which his face is highly expressive like me. So he gets it from his mama. He is independent, he's strong willed, and he lets you know when he needs space. And autism isn't something that he has, it's a part of who he is. We learn together every day, and it's become easier because I decided to rewire my expectations. And it didn't take long to do so because, as his primary parent, he needed me to be. And I've had to slow down and be present with him. I've had to learn how to listen differently. I've had to learn how to parent differently. And I've had to learn how to love differently. So, if you're listening to this right now and you've made it this far, and you're just starting or fairly new to the journey of autism, I want to say this. Number one, take a deep breath. You are not alone. But for real, there will be times where you feel lonely, but you're not. You may be overwhelmed, but you are capable. You may feel confused, but you are resourceful. And your love is so powerful, and it's enough to keep pushing forward. Your child is not broken. You can do this, and you will do this. Here's a list of things you can do. If you're thinking that your child might be autistic, take the MChatR, it's free. And you can find it online. And then you can research your state's early intervention program. In Missouri, it's First Steps. And then learn your child, like observe your child. Throw the norms out the window, throw all those schedules out the window. Learn what brings them joy. Learn what soothes them. Learn what sparks their curiosity. Find an advocate or a person that you can trust and quickly ask someone to help you out. You don't have to do this alone. Find your tribe. That's the biggest one, whether it's online groups, local autism communities, or just a friend who will listen without judgment. Find them and surround yourself with them. Join autism parent groups. Facebook has great ones, local ones and ones afar. I got friends in low places everywhere. Create a binder for medical paperwork in progress. Trust me, it's a lifesaver. Mine's electronic in my Google Drive, but do you, boo boo? If you need the paper copies, do it. Protect your peace. The road is beautiful, but it's also a lot. So learn to say no and learn what your child has the capacity for and learn what you have the capacity for. Don't compare. I know you can get into this box, but do not compare your child to another child, not even to autistic children. Don't do that. And then celebrate your child. Celebrate all the awesome, fully celebrate, fiercely celebrate, freely celebrate your baby. And then ask for help. Therapy, breaks, safe spaces, rest, sleep. You need them for real. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And lastly, lead with love. Always, always, always lead with love. And then I will leave you with a quote and a few affirmations. So the quote for this week is, autism is not a tragedy. Ignorance is the tragedy. And that's Carrie Magro. She's an autistic author and speaker. And then the 10 affirmations. I am the perfect parent for my child. My child is not behind. They are on their own path. I trust my intuition when it comes to my child's needs. I will not compare my child to anyone else. I give myself permission to rest. Muy importante. My child communicates in ways that matter. I am learning, growing, and evolving every day. I am enough just as I am. I believe in my child's potential. I lead with love always. Well, that's all for me this week. I'm forever honored that you tune in. And if you made it to the end of this episode, thank you. Thank you for holding space with me as I share a piece of my life and my love for my son. And remember, give yourself grace, give your child space, and let love lead the way. This story isn't over. My story isn't over. Our story together isn't over. There's still so much to uncover, but I hope today's episode gave you some insight on my journey from 0 to 8 years old. And for those of my friends that I don't know going through it, I just want to give you a big old hug right now. Next week, my show is called What Black Moms of Neurodiverse Children Want You to Know. I know I say you don't want to miss this show, but really, this is a show that you don't want to miss. And so until then, love and peace to all of you. Have the best week. Thank you for tuning in for a Monday Moment with Dr. Mal, now proudly a part of the Alive Podcast Network. You can find this show on the Live Podcast Network website and app, and you can find this podcast streaming across your favorite podcast streaming platforms. If you love to have the visual, you can tune into my YouTube channel, When Mallory Lives, to see this show and catch up on all my shows from the beginning.